which Seattle is a bit is a bit of an outlier in many ways, insofar as it historically had a very disproportionately large and dynamic Sephardic community. In the case of Seattle, as many as a third of the Jews in the city were Sephardic by the start of World War I, which is very unusual by American standards, according to which perhaps less than 5% nationally of Jews historically have been Sephardic Jews.
That's Devin Nahr, the Isaac Al-Hadaf Professor of Sephardic Studies at the University of Washington. He researches the history of the Sephardic Jews, those who were forced to leave Spain during the Inquisition of 1492. The Sephardic Jews spread throughout the world, many landing in the Ottoman Empire, in the area that is now Turkey and Greece. Many of these Jews eventually made their way to Seattle, which currently has the third largest Sephardic community in the United States. Some 20% of Seattle's 63,000 Jews say they have a Sephardic connection.
There's a Sephardic community in Seattle, which serves as the flagship Sephardic community for the entire West Coast. So even places like Portland and Los Angeles, which would come to have important Sephardic communities, are in their origins offshoots of the Seattle Sephardic community.
Unlike most American Jewish communities, Seattle's Sephardic community, with its unique culture, food, religious practices, and liturgy, plays an exceptionally large role.
If you grow up in Seattle today and you are not Sephardic, there may very well be a good chance you know what a boreka is, which is a kind of cuisine. But you cannot have that expectation about non-Sephardic Jews in any other Jewish community in the United States.
I'm Cynthia Flash Hemphill. This podcast will introduce you to the Seattle Sephardic Digital Walking and Driving Tour, created by the Washington State Jewish Historical Society with support of the Seattle Sephardic Network. I'm a proud Seattle Sephardic Jew. My mother came to Seattle from the island of Rhodes in 1946. That was 44 years after the first two Sephardic Jews found their way to Seattle. Isaac Azos, known as Ike, was born in Seattle to Jewish parents from the Ottoman Empire, which is now identified as Turkey. Listen to him tell the story of the first two Seattle Sephardic Jews.
In the early 1900s, in this case it was early 1902, there was a Greek merchant seaman who was on a ship. His ship stopped in Seattle because it was laid up for repairs. But he lived in the village of Marmara, on the island of Marmara, in the Sea of Marmara. This is the sea that divides European from Asiatic Turkey. He went back. He's sitting down with a group of friends and strangers, whatever, telling the story of his travels on that ship, and also the story of Seattle. It's a beautiful place. It looks a lot like Marmara. And the two Jewish boys listening to them, Solomon Calvo, Shlomo Calvo in Hebrew, and Yaakov Polikar, Jacob Polikar, said, "Would you be able to take us back with you?" I said, "Sure, if you want to come." And they did come to Seattle in 1902. Solomon Calvo and Jacob went down to the waterfront, and they're saying, "Yehudi, Jew, I'm a Jew," in Hebrew, or Yehudi. And there was a young boy by the name of Jacob Kaplan who thought he knew what they were, who they were. So he said, "Yehudi, Yehudi." So he brought him to Rabbi Jacob Gens, Genss, who was he was the rabbi of the Ashkenazic Bikur Holam congregation. And he heard them talk Hebrew, prayer book Hebrew. It didn't sound like anything he had ever heard. They took off their fringes, tzitzit, showed them, well, that's something Jewish. They showed them their tefillin, phylacteries. They've got all the accoutrements, but something's wrong here. So somebody said, we're going to write to New York, to the authorities in New York. They wrote back, says, you can feel comfortable with these young men. They are Sephardim. And so you can trust them.
Ike grew up in Seattle's Sephardic community, which originally was centered in what is today's Central District. Here, he describes some of the stops along the tour.
14th and Fur, the northwest corner, which is Washington Hall. Washington Hall is still there, and that plays a big part in the history of the Sephardic Jews because it was used not just for overflow services on high holidays, but also for performing plays in Ladino, or also, as it's known, Judeo-Espanol. In 1916, it turns out that Yom Kippur fell on Shabbat. They had a house on the corner of 15th and Fur that was being used temporarily as their synagogue, and they were hoping that they could eventually raise enough funds to build a synagogue on that corner. But what they would do every year is hire Washington Hall as an overflow area for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That year, Yom Kippur fell on Saturday. And so it was in the middle of the afternoon, and the people that ran Washington Hall came in and said, "Okay, everybody, out." "What do you mean out? We're in the middle of services." "I'm sorry, we have a dance going on tonight." "But we haven't finished." "Sorry, you've got to leave." It was very embarrassing for them, and they took an oath that that would never happen again. As it turns out, the following year, they had gathered enough money to start building. On the left side of Jack's Grocery was the Kavaneh, the Turkish coffee house of a fellow by the name of Avram Amon. I went in there once or twice, and they're playing sheshbesh or tabli or backgammon, which is a favorite game of theirs in Turkey, and they played it there as well.
The tour will take you to many more places, including the original home of the 3 Sephardic synagogues. 2 have survived: Congregation Ezra B'Seroth, started by the Jews from Rhodes, and Sephardic Bikor Holim, started by the Jews from what we now call Turkey. But they eventually moved to Seward Park, as a significant portion of the Sephardic community eventually moved further south and out of the Central District. Seattle's Sephardic community also played a big part in the famous Pike Place Market. Again, Professor Nahr.
Go to Pike Place Market to see, as a historic icon of the city, to see some of the continuing roles that very few, but once very many, Sephardic families played in the business and social life of the Pike Place Market. There's still one fish merchant of Sephardic background and a couple other stores that have Sephardic connections to them.
Before embarking on your tour, I think it's important for you to know a couple more things about Seattle's Sephardic community. First off, the community originally did not mix well with the Ashkenazic community. In fact, Sephardic community members didn't always mix well with each other. Regina Barkey Amira, my aunt, tells what she found when she came to Seattle from Rhodes in 1946.
I married another Sephardic. It happens, we fell in love.
was that something?
But remember, I was from Rhodes, and his background is Turkish. So at that time, there was a little difference also.
Was that a big deal? The fact that you were from Rhodes and his background was Turkish?
At that time, it was. But for some reason, most of our friends, that's what happened. They were with Rhodes background through their parents mostly, and others had a Turkish background, and there wasn't really that much difference, but sometimes they made a big deal out of it.
You understand that at their closest point, Turkey and Rhodes are only 12 miles apart, correct?
Yes, I know. And my father was born in Turkey.
So you were half
So,
Turkish.
no, I'm full Rhodeslia because I was born in Rhodes.
Okay. I find it interesting that there's such a distinction. Was that
There was at that time. No more.
Okay. The other important thing to know about Seattle's Sephardic community is that there's a serious effort underway to preserve the Ladino language, which is dying with the last generation to speak it at home, those born before the 1940s. Professor Naar's department has put together the largest collection of Ladino books and documents in the United States, assembled from the basements, closets, and bookshelves of the Sephardic residents who lived in the houses and worked in the stores you will see on the tour.
And it is a testament to the dynamism of the Sephardic community here in Seattle.
Ladino includes many special sayings that don't always translate to other languages. Regina recalls one.
Okay, here's one.
Okay.
We always say, if it's a long distance, you're talking about a long distance, you'll say, "Pal huerco," where the devil shaves. So that means it's far away. But if you say it in English, it doesn't mean anything.
The language continues to evolve as it moves from one country to another. Though it is mainly Spanish, Ladino has picked up bits of Turkish, Italian, and Hebrew as it has moved throughout the world. That evolution continues even to this day. Is there a word for podcast in Ladino?
Yeah, podcast.
Do you think that the native Ladino speakers had that in their vocabulary?
I would suspect not, considering nobody had that in their vocabulary until quite recently.
So the fact that Ladino is an amalgamation of multiple languages,
yeah,
I think it kind of fits into the Ladino structure to add
absolutely
language.
Absolutely.
I mean, a new word.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
Actually, yeah. And you're a podcast chia, which would be a podcast maker, a female podcast maker. So,
Did you make that up right now?
I just did right now. Yep. You're the first podcast chia in the history of the world.
As you can see, we're continuing to make Seattle Sephardic history even now. We hope you enjoy the tour.